Good day, friends. This is Bobby once again coming to you with the sixth episode of the Girmit Days. I have been thinking about what to mention and how to take this episode forward, the new series that I have embarked upon. And let me give you a quick rundown of what all happened. Day one, we spoke about how the Leonidas that came across. Leonidas is the ship. Well, in Fiji, it is called Leonidas, and the ship that arrived with the first immigrants from Indian subcontinent under the indentured labor law arrived on the 14th of May, that is about 143 years ago. And since then, people have been settling down the Girmit, which is called the agreement. So the agreement was that these indentured workers will come over to Fiji, work for about 5 years, and then they will have an extension of another 5 years, and then they can go back to India free of cost or stay back in Fiji. Now, saying all that, there were a lot of hardships. People around from Madras, Calcutta, Mumbai, Gujarat, Bihar, UP, Balochistan, Bangladesh, they all converged and came into Fiji, because at that time all these nations, Pakistan and Bangladesh, was a part of India, the Indian subcontinent, and people arrived from all different parts. They were poached and lured by the agents that was working on the ground, and in fact, the earlier government of Fiji, they had made a request to the British colony, asking them to release some farmers across from the laborers, let me say laborers from India, and which was turned down. And when they approached them again, the only clause that the British colony or the British government, that the rulers mentioned, was that if Fiji submits and comes under their rule, that is when they can consider. So that was one of the options. And the planters, they needed laborers because sugar plantation was a big thing in Fiji. So once British started ruling Fiji and India, they made a pact and they brought out the indentured agreement, labor agreement, which was very close to slavery. Basically, like all the rights were taken away, and those laborers who were brought across or shipped across from India to Fiji, they had to toil and toil. And the good part was that their salary was higher than the normal. But this is what the carrot that was hung in front of the laborers were, that you can work for us in a tiny village called Fiji, which was very close to Calcutta, and you will get 4 times the pay that you currently have, and you don't have to work so hard. So naturally, like the people from the lower income area, they felt like that was a win-win situation, and they signed. They were uneducated people, and they were taken in front of the magistrate by the agents, and somehow magically they came to a conclusion that yes, this is good, and they put their thumb impression. So I feel that they were coerced into signing those documents, and they were brought across to Fiji. Now, I also mentioned about the mother who traveled along with a child in her womb, and who landed up in Fiji after 72 days of travel in the sea, and then another 78 days of quarantine, because India had lot of diseases at that time. And what happened was, like, in order to control that, as per the British colonial system, they had to be quarantined. Now, after 78 days, all those kids under the age of 12 were not considered, but all the adults, they were supposed to go out there into the sugarcane field and toil themselves. And people from all over India came into this camp, and there was a absolute chaos. In fact, some of the books narrate that they lived in a very unhygienic condition. There was one lady or one female to every 5 male members. So there was an absolute shortage of women, and they all were living together. Now, considering this, like, there were families that were separated during this particular indentured movement, and like when people were shipped across. And now, after coming to this new land, these families, all these people all got together. Now, there were two good things that happened in this one. Number one is that because many caste and creed came across to Fiji, the good part was that there was no longer, they broke the barriers of caste system in that camp. So that means any person who came into Fiji, whom we call Fiji Indians, they never observed the caste system. Okay, so that was one of the big advantages. And the second one was that because they had to communicate across to each other, they invented or they coined a new language which is called the Fiji Indian, or like, so it's a bit different from the normal Hindi language that we speak in India, but it has all the things that has been taken and a new language was formed. Now, because the different people from different places like Balochistan and Bangladesh and India, like north, especially the northern India, like most of the workers, they came from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and when they intermarried, there was no religion that were looked into, because there was only one lady for 5 male. So the only way how they could do the marriage was through the system, like where they didn't care about the religion anymore, they didn't care about the caste, they created new families out there, and that is the way how they went forward into history. Now going forward, like what happens is the first 5 years they had to work, and the second 5 years, this is called the Khula, which is called like it was free labor. Okay, after those first 5 years when they were working hard under the indentured agreement, the next 5 years was free labor, and they had to buy their way out. At the end of the term, they would be either taken as per what they decide they want to go back. It was a free, they can go freely back to India, or they settle down in Fiji. So most of the people agreed to do that. So in fact, like yesterday in my previous episode, I had mentioned like there were 30 odd new people who were tested before the indentured laborers came down from India. And I had used the word New Carolina. So that is not the place that they came from. I just want to stand corrected. New Caledonia is the place from where they were brought. The Indians were brought in under the indentured system. They knew what the agreement was, but because they were smart, they knew that they were asked to do more than what they had signed up for. So they all went back. So now that is where India steps in. They send the poor workers across. Now at the end of the 10 years, what happens is that most of them would collect about 10 to 15 sovereigns, which was one gold coin, like 10 to 15 gold coins, and they invested themselves into Fiji. They bought small plots, or they rented small plots, and they started cultivating like the sugar plantation, and then they started flourishing because Indians were smart. They said like they had the never die attitude, unlike the normal native Fijians. Especially, please remember, the native Fijians were not allowed to work in those fields as per the rule of the Fijian government. So it was only the Indians who were working, and because of the never die attitude, they started flourishing so much. And also because it was all a small camp, they started multiplying. That means more kids were born at that time, and the number of Indians outgrew the Fijian group, or the Fijian community, the native Fijians. So there came a time when the number of Fiji Indians was far higher than the native Fijians. Then the history says that there were a lot of political uprising, there was a lot of opposition. And please remember, from 1900s, there was also another set of Indians who arrived. Those were the paid Indians. That means they paid their way to come to Fiji. While there was indentured labor, there were some Indians, some businessmen who from Madras and Mumbai, they took a boat and came over to establish business in the 1900s. So when they came in, they saw that there were many laborers and they could establish the business, and they flourished. They are here in Fiji since, like Punjabis, Gujaratis, they were there from this early 1900s when this indentured labor law was there. And so those people are still existing, and as the rest of the Fiji Indian community rose and started flourishing, the number of Fiji Indians outgrew the Fijians, as I mentioned before, and there was a political pushback to all the Fiji Indian community. And that is when the emigration out from the Fiji island started taking place. People started flying across to New Zealand, people started flying across to Australia, US, Canada, all these places. Fiji Indians are spread across to all these countries. Now, I'll keep the rest of the topic on for a different day, and for today, I will leave it at that point. Please remember, May 14th, 2022 is the 143rd year of Fiji Indian Girmit Day. So let's begin our journey, continue our journey towards that day, and over the next few days, I will bring in more reasoning, more stories about how people started surviving and how Fiji Indians went across the world and flourished and made a good reputation or good name for themselves and upheld that. So on that note, this is Bobby Phillips for today, signing off with a new set of episode, and watch out for my next episode later. That will be episode 7. So please, I would request you to share this video forward and like, comment, subscribe this channel if you can, and I'll do it next time. This is Bobby Phillips signing off from Sydney. What do we always say? Be cool. Thank you. Bye. Lots of love. Bye.